The night was quiet, actually too quiet. The kind of silence that wraps around you, smothering all sound until even the rustle of leaves seems deafening. The air was heavy with moisture, the mist rolling in from the surrounding woods, cloaking everything in a thick, damp blanket. The old airfield lay in front of me, a relic of the past, long abandoned and left to decay under the relentless march of time. I wasn't supposed to be there. The airfield was off limits, the chain-link fence surrounding it a testament to the dangers that lay within. But the stories had drawn me in, like a moth to a flame.
Welcome, dear listeners, to another chilling episode of Wicked Whispers, where the shadows come alive and nightmares whisper their secrets.
Tales of ghostly pilots, strange lights in the sky, and the sound of engines roaring to life in the dead of night. I had to see it for myself, to see if there was any truth to the legends that had circulated in hushed whispers for decades. As I stepped onto the cracked tarmac, a chill ran down my spine. It wasn't just the cold, there was something else, something that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. The air was thick with the scent of old fuel and rust, a pungent reminder of the airfield's former life. The moon hung low in the sky, casting a pale, eerie light over the deserted landscape, turning the hangars into looming shadows and the runways into streaks of silver in the darkness. I made my way toward the control tower, its windows shattered, the once bustling hub now a hollow shell. Every step I took echoed across the empty airfield, the sound bouncing back at me from the distant buildings. It was as if the very air around me was alive, charged with a strange energy that made my skin prickle. The old airfield had been built during World War II, a crucial base for pilots heading into the heart of battle. These men were young, brave, and often reckless, pushing their planes and themselves to the limits in the face of danger. But the war had taken its toll, and many of the pilots who left this airfield never returned. Their fates were unknown, shot down over enemy territory, lost at sea, or simply vanished into the night. And yet, the stories persisted. Stories of a phantom plane that could be seen flying low over the airfield on certain nights, its engines silent, its form barely visible in the darkness. Some said it was the spirit of a pilot who had been killed in action, forever doomed to relive his final flight. Others believed it was a warning, a ghostly apparition that appeared whenever danger was near. As I approached the control tower, the wind picked up, whipping through the open windows and rattling the broken panes of glass. The door was ajar, creaking as it swayed back and forth in the breeze. I hesitated, my heart pounding in my chest. I had come this far, there was no turning back now. Inside, the control tower was a mess of debris and decay. Old equipment lay strewn across the floor, covered in layers of dust and grime. The walls were stained with age, the paint peeling and flaking away in large chunks. I climbed the stairs to the observation deck, the metal steps groaning under my weight. From up here, I had a clear view of the entire airfield, the runways stretching out into the distance, the hangars standing silent and empty, the woods pressing in on all sides. And then, I saw it. A faint light, flickering in the distance. It was coming from one of the hangars, the largest one at the far end of the airfield. The light was weak, barely more than a glimmer, but it was there, unmistakable in the darkness. My breath caught in my throat. I wasn't alone. I descended the stairs quickly, my footsteps echoing in the empty tower. Outside, the air was colder now, the mist thicker, swirling around me as I made my way toward the hangar. The light flickered again, brighter this time, as if beckoning me closer. My heart raced, a mixture of fear and excitement coursing through me. Was this the ghostly presence that so many had spoken of? The phantom that haunted the old airfield? The hangar loomed ahead, its massive doors hanging open, the light spilling out into the night like a beacon. I approached cautiously, every instinct telling me to turn back, but curiosity drove me forward. The light was coming from within, casting long, eerie shadows across the ground. I stepped inside, the air heavy with the smell of oil and decay. And there it was, a plane, old and battered, sitting in the center of the hangar. Its fuselage was dented, the paint peeling, but it was unmistakably a World War II fighter plane. The light was coming from the cockpit, a soft, ethereal glow that seemed to pulse in time with my racing heart. I moved closer, my breath coming in shallow gasps, the cold seeping into my bones. Suddenly, the temperature dropped, the air around me turning frigid. My breath hung in the air in front of me, a cloud of white mist. And then, I heard it, the sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate, echoing through the hangar. I turned, my flashlight beam sweeping across the darkness, but there was no one there. Just the shadows, and the silence, and the oppressive cold that pressed in on me from all sides. The footsteps grew louder, closer, until they seemed to be right behind me. I spun around, my heart pounding in my chest, and that's when I saw him. The figure of a man, standing in the shadows at the far end of the hangar. He was tall, dressed in a flight suit, his face obscured by the darkness. But there was something about him, something that made my blood run cold. He didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, watching me, his presence sending waves of fear crashing over me. I backed away, my hands shaking, the flashlight flickering in my grip. The figure remained still, but the cold was growing more intense, the air thick with a sense of dread that seemed to suffocate me. I stumbled, my foot catching on something in the darkness, and I fell to the ground, the flashlight slipping from my grasp and rolling away. For a moment, I lay there, paralyzed with fear, unable to move. And then, the figure began to move. Slowly, deliberately, he took a step forward, then another, his movements fluid and unnatural, like a puppet being pulled on strings. My mind screamed at me to run, but my body wouldn't respond, the cold seeping into my very soul. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, it stopped. The figure froze, just a few feet away from me, and the cold receded, the air around me warming slightly. I scrambled to my feet, my heart pounding in my chest, and grabbed the flashlight, its beam wavering as I turned it back toward the figure. But he was gone. The hangar was empty, the silence deafening. The only sound was my own ragged breathing, the echo of my footsteps as I backed away, my eyes darting around the darkened space, searching for any sign of movement. And then, I saw it, the cockpit of the plane was open, the faint light flickering inside. I approached cautiously, every nerve in my body on high alert. The cockpit was empty, the seat covered in dust and grime, but the light remained, casting a soft, eerie glow that seemed to defy explanation. I reached out, my hand trembling, and touched the edge of the cockpit. The light flared, bright and blinding, and I staggered back, my vision swimming. When the light faded, the hangar was dark once more, the plane sitting in silence, as if nothing had happened. I didn't wait to see what would happen next. I turned and ran, sprinting out of the hangar and across the airfield, not stopping until I was safely back at my car. As I drove away, the image of the ghostly figure burned into my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just experienced something beyond comprehension. The stories of the phantom of the old airfield had always seemed like just that, stories. But now, I knew better. There was something there, something that defied explanation, something that haunted the deserted runways and empty hangars of the old airfield. Whether it was the spirit of a lost pilot, a manifestation of the airfield's tragic past, or something else entirely, I couldn't say. But one thing was certain, the old airfield was not as abandoned as it appeared. As I left the airfield behind, the mist swirling in my rearview mirror, I couldn't help but wonder what other secrets it held, what other spirits lingered in the shadows, waiting for those brave or foolish enough to seek them out. And I knew, deep down, that the phantom of the old airfield would continue to haunt the place, his ghostly presence a reminder of a time long past, and of the lives lost in the pursuit of victory. But whether he was a guardian or a warning, only time would tell.